Hey everyone, back again, but this time we're going to be reviewing something a little bit more popular, but perhaps maybe a little bit more unknown at the same time. As you may have saw from me slamming this thing in front of the microphone in the first 2 seconds of the video, these are Alpaca switches. But these Alpaca switches are a little bit different because these are the new molds coming from the new batch from October, which PrimeKB did show off on their social media, where they showcased an old Alpaca versus a new Alpaca. I'll show it right now, actually. So apparently, when stock, they really improved the quality, if not the sort of play, I guess. I don't know what the dedicated word is. Please let me know. But overall, they improved how the Switch sounds and feels in its stock form. Now, I was kind of skeptical about it because I thought that maybe, like, it's not really, set in stone until you put up a actual keyboard with the switches in it. And, well, what do you know? I stand corrected because these switches, when I got them out of the bag, if you were to just take a switch, like right here, and just put your finger to it, I can't find a discernible difference off the bat between a stock switch and a lubed and filmed one. Now, that's really saying something because most linear switches are obviously stock and obviously treated. So the stock ones, you can hear like a spring ping, you can sort of feel the scratch of the stem on the housings. You can even like feel if the top housing is rattly because it's not filmed. Like for example, everyone knows that you should film your JWKs. Even Glars has made a video about it, where he made a video on the tangerines and he had a small comedic bit where he sung a little bit of a melody to it. I'll link his video in the top right corner. But when it came to the alpacas, I didn't even know what switches I had at that point because I was genuinely thinking like, there's no way that these could be this smooth, right? But alas, they are. The people at PrimeKB managed to make a switch that not only appeases those that like to do the standard lube and film job, but they also managed to appease the people who are whole weirdos who want to use their switches stock and don't want to treat them no matter how long they use it. Here's my point. So over here, I have 4 switches lined up. I have a completely stock one. I have just a filmed stock one. I have a lubed but not filmed one. And I have a lubed and filmed Alpaca. I don't know why I kept saying one. So in order to give a sound preview, I'm not actually going to put them in a keyboard. The reason why is because I personally don't like the sound of my Polaris. The more I used it, the more I kind of came to dislike this sort of hollow sounding, sort of weird, not plasticky, but sort of like a empty sounding chassis. And I realized that when I was putting my switches in, that the plate, despite being brass, it is a little bit tight on the switches, and it does affect the sound from what I've noticed. So as of now, I'm gonna see if I can find a fix for the Polaris 75, but I feel like I might as well just use a switch tester because at least it will be really easy for me to pop them out of one specific spot. One thing that I find weird about some key switch testing in terms of like testing what sounds different and such is that there is not really a much of a consistency, like a true 100% consistency, unless if you put the key switch in the exact same place on a keyboard. So when you have a row, say like what I did with the last video in terms of my Gazoo's Boba U4 switch review, I put them in a row from D, F, G, H, J, and K. But the reason why I decided to do that and not point out anything is because I was testing the silentness of the switches and comparing them to the previous generation, so I didn't really feel the need to point that out. But in terms of the Alpaca, where this is a switch that isn't more focused on the silentness of it, but rather the sound of what happens when you lube and film it, I didn't want to put them in a row on a Polaris 75, and also I just didn't like the sound of it when I tested it, because not a lot of boards that are premium, or at least people who are putting these switches into the custom keyboards are probably going to want that hollow noise. So again, I may use it as a test bed in the future, but at the moment, I need to figure out how to get rid of this weird hollowness sound that kind of annoys me the more I use it. So to combat this, I'm going to be using a switch tester, like I said, but I'm going to be using one specific spot, specifically the middle spot right here. It has the most neutral spot from what I can tell, and I'm just going to easily pop in a key switch and pull it out and put in another switch and test it again. So the order will be this. I'm going to put, first switch will be the stock Alpaca. The second switch will be the stock Alpaca but filmed. The third switch I'll be testing is the lubed one, and the fourth one is the one with the most TLC, which is the lube and filmed Alpaca. Now, before I put it in the key switch tester, I'm just going to click it in front of the microphone so you can tell that I'm not fucking around when these things are smooth. Now, of course, you will be able to hear it if I put it all the way up to this professional microphone. So as a countermeasure, I'm going to click it in front of the microphone and then pull it back around a foot and see if it makes a difference. So without further ado, let's get testing. Alright, let's go into the filmed one. Here is a purely lubed one, no film. And of course, the last one, the lubed and filmed switch. Okay. I wouldn't blame you if you told me that you couldn't really hear a difference, because trust me, even I didn't even feel much of a difference at all. Which blows my fucking mind, because I don't really know how you can do that. So whoever designed this new mold for the Alpacas at PrimeKB, props to you, man. Like, I'm genuinely impressed that these things are only $5.50 for 10. Now I can really see why these things sell out fast, because these new molds, like, completely antiquate the other JWK switches that they previously released, at least in my opinion. Because previous Alpacas, you had to film them and properly lube them. But these things, like, I think you have more wiggle room to be, like, more, like, brash with them if you really want to. If not, just use it stock or put a switch foam in it if you don't have any lube. Or you can use them without lube until you get your hands on lube, because they're just usable that way. They sound good. So I'm going to put them on the key switch tester now. And the keycap of choice will be this PBT keycap that I got from a random set. It is a number row keycap profile, so we'll just keep it like that. Let's put the stock Alpaca in. Here we go. Okay, so you can hear a little bit of rattle here. Oops. But overall, it's still pretty good. Let's put a filmed one. Now, what's the weird thing about this one is that when you put on the film and put on the keycap, it seems like the only thing that makes that rattly noise is the spring, which is kind of weird to me because somehow the stock Alpaca sounds better than the filmed one, but yet somehow feels better than the stock Alpaca, yet sounds worse in a very slight a way. But now, let's just put in a lubed one. So it is a little bit bassier, but at the same time, it feels ever so slightly better with lube. But the fact that I actually had trouble discerning the two switches before putting them up in the little corner here to preface what I'm going to do with it, I genuinely had to take apart the switches. That's why the key opener is here in the first place, is because I had to check inside the switches to make sure that they were lubed and not stock, because I wasn't sure of myself. This is the new Alpacas. I can't discern lubed from unlubed. This is absolutely nuts. So here is a lubed and filmed one, which should be the magnum opus. Yeah, so it doesn't have any other rattle. It doesn't have any of the sort of top housing wobble. But you know what's weird? It seems like if you don't film them and lube them, they have a weird sort of like slinky noise. And then when you have just the film on it, it accentuates the sound of the spring. It seems like if you just lube it or just put a film on it, it doesn't do it any good. But if you use it stock, it's absolutely fine. So either you use it completely stock or you completely treat it. There's no in between. It's really, really funny to me how you either have to choose one side of the spectrum or you don't get the best results. So in terms of feel and sound, I actually prefer it in this order. We have lubed and filmed Alpacas, and then we have the stock Alpaca, and then we have the lubed Alpaca with no film, and then the filmed with no lube Alpaca. This is my personal take. I don't know whether if I just got a god batch, but whatever happened to these PrimeKB Alpaca switches over the time in which that they were remolded, someone sucked that engineer's dick. Because holy shit, these things are smooth as fuck. Now, if only they were bassier, but I can't even complain at this point because JWKs are known to be a little bit more higher pitched. But I don't give a fuck. These things are smooth. Go buy them. Keep an eye out for the group buys or the restocks because I wholly recommend this switch. If you have $5.50 for 10 and you can spare around like $40 for some, if you're going to do a 65% build, fucking do it. I don't have any gripes with these switches other than the fact that these are way too good. That's about it.